It'll be about 3 minutes before we start talking.
Okay.
It just kind of depends on what the feeling is at the time
What the vibe
I'm
is.
running.
Okay, I'm going to go with the flow.
Is always in style. We have a fantastic guest, and I'll talk about her and introduce you to her in just a few minutes. But this is KXEX 1550 AM. Saturdays, you will hear the Powell to the People at 4 o'clock. Sundays at 6 o'clock. We talk politics, education, religion, technology, sports, values, and healthy communities. And you can hear just about anything you want to hear. You simply send me a note. We'll find a way to talk about it. Also, Monday through Friday, you can hear Good News with Larry Powell. Nothing but good news stories. And that's at 10 and 4 every Monday through Friday. You can catch us on Spotify, Facebook, YouTube, you name it, you got it. We've got a place for you right here. And we're just so happy that you're a part of what's taking place. You know, a lot of great things happen in Fresno, and this is a good place to live, a great place to be. And it's an interesting weekend. We've got 9/11, so, the anniversary's coming up. One of the unique things is that Americans are so resilient. They have just the ability to bounce back from all kinds of things. That's 21 years ago. So it's a long time, but you know what? We're thriving. We're doing really well. We understand a lot of things. I really wish that the divisions among us would reduce, would be able to disagree and still like each other. That's the one thing I'm shooting for. One thing I wanted to remind you of, the Darrell Rogers Golf Tournament for CEF is coming up on October the 8th, 2022 at Eagle Springs Golf and Country Club, and it raises money for child evangelism, and it's just a fantastic tournament. We only have 144 spots. It fills up almost every year. Just a great thing. Just encourage you to give Tammy Beers a call at 559-226 5539, and you can sign up if you'd like to be a sponsor. We'd love to have you a sponsor as well. But Darrell Rogers, former coach at Fresno State, and my guest today is Fresno State connected too. We're going to talk about that. And also from Fresno. So we got a lot of good things going on, but this tournament is something I really encourage you to get involved in. They got 80 good news clubs that they run in schools throughout Fresno County, and just some good things are happening. But it's a weekend to reflect and a weekend to look ahead. And I really like when we as Americans understand that no matter what happens to us, we are going to stick together. We're going to do the right thing, and we're going to really care for each other. And live, love, and laugh is something that one of my guests today knows really well. Well, I'm going to not wait any longer, but Armen Bacon, a very good friend of mine, author here in town. We're going to talk a lot about you. Armen, welcome to the show.
Oh, I'm so happy to be here. Good morning, Larry.
Well, it's nice to have you. Armen and I had the privilege of working together as colleagues when I was county superintendent. She was my voice in a lot of ways. She learned what I wanted to say, and then she wrote it and I said it. So
I love being your ghostwriter.
Well, that was really fun, and we did almost 8 years together on K-Jewel, another radio station here in town. But it was an amazing time, and we'll talk a little more about that. But you and I don't know, somehow had a simpatico.
Yes.
That we understood each other. We just were a partnership. When you're trying to get a message across to 220,000 kids, 310 schools, community colleges, the entire community at large. It's nice to have an expert in public relations, which I had in you.
Well, and I think we were both rooted in family values, in community. We both love Fresno.
Yes.
We have a large circle of friends in common, and it just made it easy.
Wasn't that something?
It was a joy working with you.
Thank you. It was a great time.
Yeah,
it was a great time.
was.
And, when you look back, it went so fast.
Yeah. In the blink of an eye, right?
I know, yeah. And I left in 2011. I think it was 2011, maybe 12. But, we're 10 years now down the road.
I know. I left a couple years later and decided to basically jump off the high dive. I left one passion to chase another one.
Yes,
and
yes.
It was the scariest, most exciting time of my life. But I think that became my mantra. It's like, if you have a dream, you have to chase it.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Don't
Go
wait till
for it.
tomorrow. Go for it.
If you wait till tomorrow, it may not get here.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. That's great. Well, I was born in Sanger, but moved to Fresno at 6 months old, and grew up in Calwa. So Calwa was my home. So
We were neighbors.
yes, I know. So tell us a little bit. Where were you born? What was your neighborhood? When you were growing up.
I was born at St. Agnes Hospital, the old one.
Yep.
And my mom always told us about being wheeled into labor and delivery and seeing a shooting star and saying, God, please give me twins. And in those days, there were not ultrasounds and all the technology. And lo and behold, she had identical twins.
Exactly.
And so I was born and raised in Fresno, and I grew up in Southeast Fresno, right across the street from Juvenile Hall.
Oh, I love it. Yes.
And so the big joke was every so often, of course, in those days, you were put in Juvenile Hall for staying out past curfew.
Right.
I mean, it wasn't anything too serious.
Yeah, exactly.
But oftentimes a young person would try to sneak out, and they would land in our backyard. And so we felt like we were the second home for a lot of the Juvenile Hall kids.
Isn't that amazing?
Yes.
I know.
But I was born and raised in Fresno, and my cousins all lived across the street from us. It was one big family.
It was a community within a community.
Yes.
Yeah.
And like you hear so many of our generation say, from 8 o'clock in the morning in the summers till dark, we were out on our bikes, taking the bus to the mall. Life was beautiful.
You know what? And nobody worried about somebody getting hurt other than maybe falling off the bike.
Exactly.
But you didn't worry about the neighborhood, and families in the neighborhood knew you. And if you did something wrong, mom was called.
You had a lot of parents on the block.
A lot
right?
of parents, yes. I grew up on Church Street, so just take Cedar on down from the youth center there, and you get down to church, and that's where I was. So.
Well, I walked in junior high. I walked to Sequoia every single day, and so I was headed to your neighborhood on a daily basis.
Well, it was a great time, and Hanoian's Market was down there during those days, and that's where we shopped all the time. The fairgrounds was close. We had Calwa Park in our neighborhood. It was a unique time in America, and I loved it. Absolutely loved it.
Yes.
Now, my dad did an interesting thing. He took us out one day from the front door, walked us out to Church Avenue, which was a fairly busy avenue, and gave both my brother and I a big swat. And mom's looking out the window from the kitchen, and she's going, "What's going on?" And he said to me and to Steve, my brother, "If you ever walk onto that street, that's what's going to happen to you." There were 6 kids killed on that street during our childhood. Wow. And so Dad knew what he was doing. We had no idea why we were getting swatted, but it made sense later.
But you never walked out in the middle of the street.
Let me tell you, I have a tough time crossing streets now. No.
Well, for us, it was kind of little Armenia. There were so many Armenians in our neighborhood. So we had aunties and uncles, and, we ate lunches and dinners across the street, around the block.
Exactly.
And you had extended family everywhere. In fact, I'm a huge fan of William Saroyan. And I think, my second and third books, which are titled My Name is Armen, are really in honor of My Name is Aram.
Yes.
It's kind of a spin-off of his book, because he was so lyrical and so expressive in sharing his love for Fresno and the Armenian community. And I kind of
You've carried that on.
I've tried to echo those sentiments in a lot of my writing.
Yeah, absolutely. And when you were writing for me, for a lot of the messages that I got out, that theme kind of was woven through that as well. We love Fresno. We absolutely love Fresno.
And family is everything.
Yeah.
I think that's that's underscored in everything I write.
Tell folks a little bit about your mom.
Oh, well, my mom was really an amazing woman. We lost her 3 years ago, but she was feisty. She was, she had lots and lots of friends. And when I have a twin sister, and then 9 years later, our sister Edie was born. And my mom, she was known in Fresno as the baby picture lady. She had the contract with Sierra Hospital, St. Agnes, and Community Hospital.
Wow.
And she took the first
pictures?
The first baby's picture of life.
Oh, I love it.
So she had cameras set up in all of the maternity departments of the hospitals. And we had actually, she kicked my sister and I out of our bedroom, and all three sisters were in one bedroom, and our former bedroom became a dark room. and those were the days when you developed, she did her own photos.
Yeah.
And we had probably 10,000 baby photos hanging on the walls of our house.
Wow.
And periodically new moms who would want reprints or a retake would come knocking at the door with their new babies. So we had a lot of life in entering our home. It was beautiful.
That's fantastic.
And my mom was also, she was widowed quite early. My dad was in his 50s. And so she basically really modeled how to reinvent yourself.
Right.
She started quilting. She got involved in the community, and she still had the baby picture company. So she showed us all what resilience is all about.
Yeah,
and
fantastic.
And of course, little did I know that I would be personally put to that test years later.
Amazing. Well, I can't believe how fast our segments go. We're done with our first one already. I know. Folks, you're going to get to hear a lot more about Armen Bacon, a fantastic author here in town, a wonderful person, and we're going to be right back. You're listening to Powell to the People, where civility is always in style.
You're listening to Powell to the People. Write it down. The People on the best talk in town.
Well, welcome back to Powell to the People, where civility is always in style. And, I'm just having the time of my life today with Armen Bacon, one of my really good friends. And I just admire her ability. And, your writing and all of the stuff that you've done with that is pretty amazing. You had, Danielle and Daniel, just two remarkable kids. And I get to see Danielle every once in a while at the grocery store or something, and we get to say hi. But you have a remarkable story, which we're going to talk about with your book that you wrote, Griefland, but we're going to catch that in a little bit. But you also have Dan. So you got Dan, Danielle, and Daniel.
Alex.
Oh, excuse me.
Okay.
Alex. I'm sorry. Okay. You're right. Alex. Yeah, Alex. But tell me a little bit about Dan, because I know he's an attorney here in town.
Yes. Well, we've been married for 46 years, and we just say, how can that be? It feels like yesterday that we just met. And interestingly enough, he passed the bar exam. He's an attorney in town.
Yep.
And we met on the tennis courts of Roding Park.
Is that right?
Yes. And we both went to Fresno State, both graduated from Fresno State, but never crossed paths. Ever. Not in church, not at school.
Tennis at Roding Park.
Friends, but we met on the tennis courts of Roding Park.
Yeah.
And 3 months later, we were engaged, and by summer, we were married. And and my mother always said, when you know, you know.
Yeah, you do.
And we did. and thank God it lasted.
Yeah,
and,
exactly.
And we're still having the time of our lives. So we're happy about that.
Well, and Dot and I just finished our 52nd year.
Wow, how can that be? You're only 37.
I know. That's amazing how fast it goes.
Yes.
But, when we got married, you married Dan, I married Dot, and we married for life.
Yes.
I mean, it was a commitment that was unwavering. And Billy Graham's wife once said, did you ever want to divorce Billy? She said, no, I wanted to kill him several times, but I didn't want to divorce him. So we've been through all of the things you go through, but...
Well, I think you don't always know in that moment. You know that there's this strong connection and this electrical connection between the two of you. But you don't know what life's going to give you.
You don't.
And, whether it's aging parents, illness, tragedy, you don't know.
Yeah, exactly.
And so, you lock arms and you give it your best and you live one day at a time.
Yeah.
But it's hard to foresee what's going to come your way.
You got no idea.
You don't have any idea.
Yep.
And I think no one is exempt. We all get tested in one way or another. And the longer you live, the more people you know, the more sadness and joy you're going to have.
Yeah.
It's the human condition.
Well, and the Bible talks about it in terms like this, instant in season and out of season.
Exactly.
So whatever comes your way, you trust the Lord and you move on.
Yes. I have a favorite author, Joan Didion, and she says, life changes in an ordinary instant. And isn't that so true,
true
for all of us?
Yes. Yeah.
So,
and we find a way to survive the big things, but there are a whole lot of little things that come at you all the time.
Yes.
And the relationships you have with people are what help you get through that.
Exactly.
That kind of thing.
And I have tried to teach my children, and my personal mantra is, and you talk about civility, mine is be kind, be kind, be kind, because we never know what's going on behind the velvet curtain of other people's lives.
Oh, exactly.
You know, and so you have to be gentle. We're all fragile and vulnerable, and kindness is something we're all capable of doing.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. It's amazing. You get a bring and brag session right here.
Oh, no.
Your grandkids.
Oh, yes. I have 5 extraordinary grandchildren.
Yeah.
And the cool thing is, because I've mentioned I'm an identical twin.
Yeah.
Both my twin sister and I, both of our children had twins. So the twin legacy has continued.
It's gone on, yes.
So I have a 16-year-old, a 14-year-old, 2 granddaughters,
Yeah.
and then I have a set of twins
Wow.
who are 12. And then I have another grandson who's 19.
Is that right?
Yes. And so, I mean, it's fun, the family circus.
Yeah.
And, we do most of the holidays. We host a lot of the family holidays at our place.
Yeah.
And it's crazy and wonderful. And
I
I
love
wouldn't
it.
trade it for anything.
No, did the twins ever ask you any questions about what it was like to be a twin when you were younger?
Well, I'm an identical twin. They're fraternal.
Fraternal, okay.
So, but there's this magical closeness,
Yes.
whether you're fraternal or identical. They take care of each other, and yes, they do. And there have been times when they were little when they got less confused.
Okay.
They weren't quite sure who was hugging them. Is this grandma or is this auntie? So anyway, but it's lovely. I feel very blessed to have 5 grandchildren.
I love it. That's fantastic. And we've got 4, love them to death, and 2 are adopted, and 2 are from Katie, our daughter, and they came from meth mothers.
Uh-huh.
And Katie just brought them into the family, and she's a special ed administrator and teacher, and she just loves these kids, and so do we. I mean,
and how lucky they are to be part of your family.
Well, we were blessed. And when the judge said, from this day forward, AJ will forever be a Carter, because her last name is Carter, it was like she was, JAJ was born that moment.
Oh, isn't that beautiful?
And phenomenal. And we just love them to death. Well, I'll tell you what, we got a lot of things that we've got on the docket for today, but I wanted to start with an amazing book that you wrote. It's called Griefland, folks. You take a look at this, and it was written with a friend of yours,
yes,
who has now become a really good friend.
Well, actually,
and you didn't know each other.
We didn't know each other at the time. And a friend of mine, the genesis of this book was a friend of mine from Fresno State called me 4 years after we lost our son Alex, and said, "Oh my gosh, somebody at the university just lost her daughter, and our whole department is paralyzed. We don't know what to do. Will you reach out to her?" And I said, "Of course I will."
Yeah.
And we met at Uncle Harry's bagel shop across from the university.
Yeah.
And there was magic in the air. It was as if both of our children were saying, you have to write a book.
So thus Armen Bacon and Nancy Miller came to be authors together.
Yes.
Yeah, this is an absolutely remarkable book that takes people through one of those journeys you hope you never have to go through in life. But, it was really, really tough, and it always is tough.
Yes.
But somehow you find a path through it. What did Griefland do for you in writing it?
Well, first of all, it saved me on so many levels.
Yeah.
But also one of the hardest parts of navigating grief was that the people that you think are going to lean in they still love you, but they don't know what to say.
Yeah.
And so one of the reasons we wrote this book was we wanted to create a dialect, a language for loss, so that people could get beyond the "I'm so sorry for your loss" and the sympathy card.
Right.
And to remind people that you don't have to have the words. You don't have to, just sitting with somebody and just leaning in and giving a hug, and that sometimes is plenty.
Yes.
And so we wanted to give people permission to also to grieve any way they needed to, because honestly, the journey is so hard that any way you get through it is heroic.
And it's personal to you and can't be.
And there's no right or wrong way to do it.
There's no path.
No. And grief is one of those things that, unfortunately, at the end, it's not tied up with a pretty bow and ribbon.
Yeah.
That you carry it with you forever, but you can learn how to walk through life with a crack running down your middle.
Yeah.
And, I tell people, yes, my heart is cracked wide open, but it lets in a lot of light and a lot of love. And I still have abundant joy in my life. And I think actually it's given me more clarity of vision.
Wow.
And I don't wish the journey on anybody.
No.
But, we are living, Larry, in this era of loss.
It
People
is.
are losing aging parents, they're losing colleagues, friends.
And thousands during COVID.
Yes. And so, our book, in fact, our editor, we got a call last year during the height of COVID saying they want to reissue your book. And Nancy and I decided we're not sure. We wanted to write another book.
Gotcha.
And so we've just finished writing a new book that looks at long-term grief. What happens after you've been grieving for 10 years or 20 years or 30 years? How does it transform you and change you on maybe even a cellular level? And what does joy look like after 10 years of grieving a lost child or a lost parent?
And the title of that book?
It's called Daring to Breathe.
And you just about have finished it.
Yes, we're in the final throes of editing the manuscript, and your Dot will tell you what that feels like.
Yeah,
we're exhausted, but in a good way.
In a good way, yeah.
Yes,
Daring to Breathe. Wow, that's quite a follow-up to this whole thing, because July 17th is the date, and when we worked together and things, we knew that date was always coming, and so my grandfather died on Christmas Eve. So that date was locked in my mind.
Brace yourself.
Yeah.
Right?
And at every, Christmas time, we knew, that discussion was going to come up one way or another. He was one of these amazing guys in my life. He was only about 5'5", had hands bigger than mine, and I got big hands. And he took me out for a root beer down at Sanger at the Chuck Wagon one time. And then when I finished it, he said, "Would you like another?" And so, those kind of memories, you've got little things that just lock into long-term memory.
Oh, absolutely.
And I know with Alex, the same thing is true, and folks, if you've got to read the book, to get a sense of what's going on. But Alex was an absolutely gorgeous looking guy. I mean, beautiful, beautiful young man. And that's really a tough thing to carry with you through life, but you've done it so well in helping others navigate that thing. We want to talk more about Griefland in just a minute. Okay. We're done with our second segment already. You're listening to Powell to the People, where civility is always in style. We're sure glad you're with us, and we're going to be right back. And Facebook folks, thanks so much for being here. Make sure you hit that share button, and they want to know about this story with Armen Bacon. Thank you. See you in a bit.
You're listening to Powell to the People. Write it down. To the People on the best talk in town.
Hey, welcome back to Powell to the People, where civility is always in style. And you can count on us talking about things in a civil way, no matter whether they're controversial or just good things everybody wants to talk about. And remember, we talk politics, education, religion, technology, sports, values, and healthy communities. And if you got something on the list, add it to it. We'd be glad to do it as well. Well, Armen, you wrote a really nice thing about Dot's book, that my wife has written and things, but she wrote on her website, she highlighted a bunch of authors and one of yours, and here's what she wrote. Only with firsthand experience can a person grasp the deep sorrow of a parent losing a child. This dark and devastating tragedy struck Armen Bacon. She and fellow author Nancy Miller dipped into their vast well of tears to fill a cup of their profound heartache and poured it back into their book, Griefland. This is a book that will change your life. And obviously available on Amazon, I think Barnes and Noble, a lot of different places, same places Dot has her book. But when you go through grief, we have a program at People's Church that's called Grief to Growth. Mm-hmm. Our pastor for music and worship arts lost his wife his current wife lost her husband, who was a minister at North Point. The two of them got together, and they have a blended family now. But they have a grief to growth program that they offer, because grief is not something that is so definable and put in a box.
Exactly.
It's living outside of a box and trying to figure out, okay, what do I do next? Who do I go to? How do I express grief? Do I hide away and stay with myself, inside myself, for a long period of time? And just like you mentioned earlier, which I think is really fascinating, whenever I do funerals as a pastor at People's Church, I do a lot of funerals. One of the things I say to the family is this, before we go out into the sanctuary. I say, I want you to be prepared for the stupid things people say that are well-intended.
Yes, exactly.
Okay? They really want to help you. They have no clue how to do that, and they will say things and you go, what in the world are you saying?
Right.
Did you experience some of that?
Oh, experienced a lot of it. I mean, people saying, and I hope I'm not going to offend dog lovers right now, but somebody very close to me said, I know exactly how you feel. Our dog died last week.
Oh, man.
And it's like, please don't say that.
No.
It's not the same. But you know, maybe for somebody it is.
Oh.
But yes, and in fact, Larry, that's why it was so important for us to put a microphone to grief. To share this, because you know, many people don't know. I mean, thank God they haven't experienced a profound loss, like losing a child or losing a parent or a sibling. And so we have to have these courageous conversations.
Absolutely.
And we need to bring it out of the closet. And many cultures, including my own, the Armenian culture, when somebody dies, you basically sit quietly and maybe share a few upbeat stories, but you don't.
It's internal, though.
You don't cry. You don't cry out loud.
Yeah.
You don't put words to it much. You sit quietly out of respect.
Yes.
And that's part of our tradition. And so you go away, and then you move on with your life. And I was just so aware of, and now I have tried to pay it forward, is that, you know, in the weeks and years, I mean, it's not something that you get over.
Right.
And so it's really important. I mean, and it's not just on the anniversaries or on Christmas or on Alex's birthday. It's on Tuesdays and Wednesdays and a random Saturday, you know.
And strikes quickly.
And the triggers are
smell
everywhere. Exactly.
Yeah.
And so I think we have to just be mindful. And as a society, I do think, because of COVID, I don't think anybody, I think we all know somebody who had who either passed or who lost somebody as a result of COVID. And again, we are living in this era of loss, and you know, it's the time of life for many of us. We're losing friends.
Yeah.
And so I think talking openly about the grief journey and navigating it, and take radical self-care. I think as somebody who has grieved the loss of parents and also my child, it's a time when you must take extraordinary care of yourself, because you're vulnerable to illness, to other things that can happen to you. Exactly.
Well, we just did Jack Hanna's funeral out at People's Church. Longtime friend of mine. He was at Hoover High School coaching wrestling. I wrestled at McLean High School. And so we got to know each other back in 1964, 65. Wow. And I was a better wrestler in his mind than I was in reality. You know how that works and stuff. But what a great guy. But, you know, we are losing people that are dear to us. At church during COVID, we lost 19 folks connected to the church in one way or another. 9,000 in our database and things, but it was a hard time, and we didn't get to go visit them.
Exactly.
You know, they had to go through that with nobody touching them, hugging them, holding their hand, except for family members who could get in. But as a pastor, I couldn't even get into the hospital when the person was sick. I couldn't get to the home. It was a hard time.
That had to be so hard. Well, and I know we had a couple of funerals where only 30 people were allowed. We had to distance ourselves. And I mean, it was very different than I think what we're accustomed to, being able to at least give a tight squeeze and say, I love you.
And to celebrate their life together in a community.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And, you know, I do try to share with people that I think the best way we can honor our lost loved ones is to live more fully in their place, and it's hard sometimes
It
to
is.
do that, because sometimes you fall into that rabbit hole
Yeah.
when you just want to be left alone and you want to just be sad. But I think when you crawl out, you have to continue living life.
Yes.
And honor them by doing that.
Yeah, yeah. I want to just read a little bit off the jacket on the back of your book. The powerful and lyrical story of two women whose words and astonishing friendship helped them survive the ultimate loss. And you've got some really, interesting comments that come in from folks. And I know the book was so well received immediately because everybody goes through that. This isn't one of those that just a few people in life go through it, but we all do on one level or another, some in a more intense way than others do. And I lost my father, about 6 years ago. Great guy, tremendous influence in my life. And Mom is 98 and still going strong, still has her driver's license, has better eyesight than I do. And she's still a public speaker. I mean, she's amazing. So I know that loss is coming down the line, but when you've lived well together and have celebrated each other's lives while you're alive, it helps.
It certainly does. I mean,
Yeah.
I hold on to, I have such, with Alex, I have this one memory. We all loved, my children loved theater. And we went to San Francisco to take the children to see Les Mis. And Alex was very young. I think he was 7 years old. So he was a little on the young side for a show that's pretty intense.
Yeah.
But the barricade scene comes on, and we had great seats, and he's so intense watching. And I think this poor little guy just got hot and sweaty watching all the action going on
He
the
was
stage.
living it.
And then intermission comes right after the barricade scene. And we look, and Alex is naked from the waist up. He's gotten so hot, he took his jacket off, his shirt off, his T-shirt off.
Yeah.
And that memory, which brings so much joy. I mean, even though in the moment we were like, oh my God, put your clothes back on. But that memory is tattooed in my heart.
Yeah.
And it brings such a smile to my face.
Of course.
When I think about it. And so, you cherish those memories.
You do.
And I share with people that, instead of just sending a sympathy note saying, we're sorry for your loss, say their name and share a memory that you remember. I had one friend from Alex's preschool who wrote me a note and said, I never told you this, but Alex came over for a play day, and somehow the boys started chewing gum, and Alex had pretty long hair as a toddler, and somehow the gum got from his mouth into his full head of hair. And she said, I had read in a Good Housekeeping article that peanut butter would get bubble gum out of hair.
Wow.
And so I covered his hair with peanut butter, and it didn't work. And we had him outside with the hose trying to get this peanut butter out. And to this day, her card I have kept because it's such a joyous little playful moment of, this is what he was like a child.
Exactly.
and these were the little shenanigans that took place. So anyway.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, amazing.
And so it's, say their name, share those stories, those special memories.
Yeah. Don't discount the fact that it happened.
Exactly.
I'd often tell people I had polio, 1949, and it's okay to say, Larry, you had polio.
Exactly. Yes.
That's fine, and I talk often about that vignette that happens when I'm walking down Fashion Fair and I see a mother coming toward me with a little kid, and I know that she knows that I know that kid's going to say something about my limp, and it's okay,
Yes.
and when the kid starts to say something, she jerks the arm out of the socket and I go, wait a minute, come here, let me show you my brace. And I think it's the one thing, if you deny the reality of it, it's harder to get through.
Yes, we have to give each other permission to be human.
Yes.
And even permission to say, I don't know what to say in this moment, but I love you. I care about you, and I'm thinking about you.
Amazing. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I can't believe we're done with just about our third segment, but folks, I want to highlight again, this is called Griefland, and Armen Bacon and Nancy Miller. You can get it online with Amazon. You can also go to Barnes & Noble and pick it up there as well. But it is a real worthwhile read because everybody knows somebody who's gone through grief. and this will help you take you through it and give you permission to grieve well. So I really encourage you, get a copy of Griefland. You don't want to miss it. We're going to be right back. Thank you for being here. This is Powell to the People, where civility is always in style.
You're listening to Powell to the People. Write it down.
Thank you.
The People on the best talk in town.
Hey, welcome back to Powell to the People, where civility is always in style. Armen sent me one of her pictures, and Facebook folks, you'll be able to see that. Radio, you won't, but if you go to simply Google Armen Bacon, you'll get to see a lot of really fantastic professional photos. But Facebook folks, this is one of them, and it's one of my favorites. But she and I also worked together when we celebrated the 150th anniversary of Fresno County, I believe. And we have a picture with blue shirts on that say Fresno County and stuff like that. I treasure that picture. It was really fun. I've got a couple of pictures of Armen and me in her office when I was getting ready to leave, and those are really fun. But it was a great time that we had a period of as deputy superintendent, then as superintendent, of about 9 years together.
Yes.
That was a remarkable time. And then Pete Mias was superintendent before I was, and was your boss and my boss. And when Pete left, the one thing he said to me, he said, "You won't ever hear from me unless you call me and want to know something," which was really unique, so we had that. But he said, "I wish I had done some of the things you're doing." And I talked to him about it, and I said, "Well, I have Armen Bacon," because you have a unique knack of knowing how the community is going to react to something, and especially in the media world, and what they do. And you had relationships with every media person out there. So it was a unique connection that allowed the Fresno County Office of Education and me as superintendent to connect even on a deeper, further level than ever before. It was a unique time.
It was a very special time. And I think for both of us, it's all about relationship building.
Yeah.
And when you've lived and cherished a community like Fresno, as we both have, you're born and raised here, and we have teachers and friends. You know who to call. If you need a doctor, you know who to call.
Yeah.
If you have a breaking story, you have a friend who works in the media, so it's so much about relationships.
Yeah, exactly.
And what I admired most about you is you never shied away from the tough questions. And I remember sitting in rooms with you saying, "Okay, what's the question we hope nobody asks?" And we're going to answer it. How are we going to answer it with truth and with integrity?
Exactly.
And because this is our community and we love it. And I think we both also loved education.
Yeah.
It was my everything growing up.
Because of that honesty, we didn't have a media that did a gotcha.
No, never.
Because they trusted the answers we gave.
Yes.
And you and I would craft those together, and it was a unique time, a really unique time. You did something else this summer that was unique at Fresno State, a summer arts program.
Yes.
And Mark Arax, one of our other local authors here in town. But tell us a little bit about your adventure there, because you were the professor.
I was the guest artist, and I was so honored and thrilled, but also petrified, because the CSU Summer Arts Program was really the program that gave me wings. I went maybe, I think it was 2012. I took my first class. I was the oldest student in the class, and it was an intense writing course, and I took it several years in a row. And then this year they asked me to be a guest artist, and so I taught memoir for 2 weeks, and I loved my students. I loved every single moment. I was honored to share the stage with Mark Arax.
Yeah.
We both did readings from our books, and it was just one of those defining moments that I will never, ever forget.
Well, what a benefit to all of the folks in the class, that were taking it, because you have such and I know you say, sometimes I think about, okay, what do I write, and how do I write it? But you have such an easy flow with what you say, and the way you put things together is absolutely phenomenal. And I wanted to read, I don't know if you remember what you wrote when you gave me this book, Griefland, but I want to read it to the folks because it's so unique. It says, "Dear Larry, your generosity of spirit and humanity lights the way for so many of us. Husband to wife, parent to child, friend to friend, love trumps all. Thank you for your immeasurable gift of friendship and unwavering support as I have lived, traveled, and written Griefland with utmost admiration and heartfelt gratitude, Armen." Such a unique thing. I treasure,
well,
really
and,
treasure it.
I mean every word.
Yeah.
I mean every word. Surround yourself with great people, and the goodness flows out of you.
Yeah.
I mean, and again, that's a compliment to Fresno and our community. There's so many special, wonderful people, and that we both know.
Yeah.
And I couldn't have picked a better superintendent to work with than you. So we had a great,
good. It was a Camelot time.
Yeah.
It really was. Yeah,
I agree.
and it's unique when you think back to the experiences that God allowed you to have. And even going through the death of Alex leads to Griefland, and help for an innumerable number of people. And the pain that you go through. And I often tell folks in our congregation and our faith family at church that God uses the difficult things in our life to teach us the lessons that he wants us to know. And he doesn't cause them to happen, but he helps us get through it. And I love the idea of I don't stop here. I don't stop growing. I don't stop being a person. I don't stop loving. I continue to move forward.
Well, and the big question for me was, and for Nancy was, is it possible to take the worst day of our lives and use it as a catalyst for perhaps the greatest work we'll ever do? And we didn't know the answer. We walked in kind of blind and said, let's just start writing and see where it takes us. And it's like walking through this fire is either going to melt or illuminate us. And it did both, actually, but I have no regrets. I'm so grateful. I have met so many extraordinary humans as a result of this book and the other books I've written. And
which leads me to the next thing I want to talk about. My name is Armen, and you have two different books, A Life in Column Inches and Outside the Lines. Tell us a little bit about those books, and then I want to talk about your fourth book that's coming out.
Well, both of them are collections of essays. Some of them include Fresno Bee columns that I wrote that were popular columns that people said,
I remember them.
I'll never forget this column that you wrote. And so it's a collection of them. And I was thrilled. The press at California State University, Fresno, wanted to publish them. And they're, what I like about them is people are so busy in their lives these days that you can pick up either one of those books and you can read a single essay.
Get the vignette.
A vignette,
yes.
And then you can put it down and then pick it up again.
Yeah.
And they're really stories about community and about family and about love, loss, and the human condition. And so I think they're relatable to whether you're Armenian, whether whatever your faith, wherever you live. There's stories about life.
Tell me about the name of the book.
Well, my name is Armen.
Yeah.
I think I said earlier, my literary hero is William Saroyan.
Yeah, we talked off camera on that.
Oh, okay, all right.
Good, so.
Well, my name is Armen was one of the books my sixth grade teacher, Seth Atamian, told me. It was hard being an Armenian in elementary school.
In the early days here in
kids
Fresno.
made fun of you. They called us Armos. They made fun about our prominent nose, our darker skin. And my sixth grade teacher pulled me aside one day and said, you need to read William Saroyan. And he handed me My Name is Armen. And that book was kind of a life changer for me. It was like I saw myself in every chapter of that book.
Wow.
And the uncles and aunts he had, they were the same aunties and uncles I had. They, they talked with their hands.
Yes.
They overfed you too much pilaf at the dinner table.
Exactly.
And so in his honor, when I decided to write these books, I said, I'm going to sort of mimic his title, only my name is Armen.
It's fantastic.
But they're close enough.
Yes.
They're close enough.
Yes.
So, yeah.
I absolutely love it. And I think it's really positively reflective of the good things that the Armenian community has done in Fresno,
Yes.
and how they have survived a lot.
Yes.
And now we have Roger Tatarian School.
Which is fantastic.
I mean,
bravo to Jim Boren and the groups that
Absolutely.
really worked hard to make this
And
happen.
Jim Boren's a McLean grad,
Yes.
and so
we're all related,
we
right?
if you're in Fresno for very long, you know everybody,
Yes.
and you're connected. Okay, we're down to about 2 minutes left, but talk about your last book that you're just about ready to do.
Well, Daring to Breathe, it's a collection, it's an anthology of several voices, not just mine and Nancy's. And it's, when COVID hit and people were experiencing long haulers grief where the symptoms continued and kept
Right.
morphing, we asked ourselves, oh my gosh, what happens to grief after 1 decade, 2 decades, 30 years? Is it possible? Can it be transformational in a good way?
Right.
What does it do to the human spirit? And so we talked to lots of writers, and we have 29 narrative essays about people who have made dramatic and incredible life changes as a result of a tragic loss.
Wow.
And then we wrote the introduction, and then we both have essays at the end. Mine is called Destiny of Survival, and I think it's going to be an incredible, hopeful and encouraging read. And
when do you anticipate it being published?
well, it's going to our editors soon, and I'm hoping that by
Christmas?
either by Christmas or early 23.
Okay.
That's the plan right
Okay.
now. So
Well, I'll tell you what a wonderful opportunity, Armen, to have you with us today.
it's been a
And,
joy.
I'll tell you, folks, you got to hit that share button if you're on Facebook, and if you've got Spotify, share that with a lot of folks as well, because this is a great story. And the book, the first book, Griefland, is absolutely a remarkable book and will help you through whatever you're going through if you've suffered a loss. I got to tell you, I've been inspired since you write, my wife writes, I write a lot of stories, but I'm working on a book called Braced for Success.
Oh, perfect.
So about polio, and stuff. So we'll see where it all leads. I can't believe we're done with our time, but thank you so much, Armen, for
And
being here.
Thank you for having me. What a pleasure, and to be reunited.
Yes,
I love it.
I love it. It's been a great time. So, folks, please hit that share button and let folks know about Powell to the People, where civility is always in style. See you next week.